Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible, Owaspi. And the topic of discussion today is called the first migration into Egypt, or Kemet. There were foreign rulers ruling in Lower Kemet, which would be North Africa, in pre-dynastic times. The proof is in the Narmer palette, where it shows Narmer slaying these foreign rulers in order to gain control of these regions. This proves that these foreign rulers occupied Lower Kemet, Northern Kemet in pre-dynastic times, and this migration took place before the first rulers of the first dynasty of Egypt. These people migrated from Canaan, Syria, and Mesopotamia, and the first dynasty rulers were from these people known as foreign rulers, interpreted in Kemet as HEQA-KHASWET. And these HEQA-KHASWET, according to the Kemites, settled in Egypt and was part of an extending empire stemming from Sumer. And this time period is around 3029-2800 BC, within that time period. Now, the Book of Wars Against Jehovah, chapter 47, verse 1 through 25, it states, verse 1, In Hakwad, in Persia, dwelt King Luthag, a man of great wisdom and kingly power. His capital city, Surat, lay on the border of Phoenicia, and had 12 tributary cities, each city being ruled over by a king. Verse 2, And a great drought came upon the regions ruled by Luthag, and being a king of benevolence, he sent inspectors far and near to find a country of water and good soil, but alas, they found not what was desired. Verse 3, Luthag consulted the oracles, and behold, the angel Egypt came and answered the king, saying, Send thou thy seer, and I will lead him. So the king sent for his high seer, and told him the words of the oracle. And the seer said, Wherever the God touch thee, suffer thou me to touch also, and perhaps I can hear thy God speak. Verse 4, The seer touched the king in the place, and at once the God spoke to him, which is Egypt, and he heard. So it came to pass the God Egypt led the seer into Egypt, which at that time was called South Arabia. The seer knew not the country, and he asked the God. The Spirit said, Behold, the land of Egypt. Thus was named that land, which is to this day called Egypt. So here is showing you the origin of where the name Egypt stemmed from, being the angel Egypt. This is the origin of the term Egypt. And Egypt was a servant angel in the heavenly kingdom of Osiris. And it stated that the seer knew not the land. So these people was not familiar with these regions coming from the Persian Empire of Sumer at the time. Verse 5, The seer found the land fertile and well watered, and he returned to Persia and informed the king. Thereupon the king commanded his people to migrate to Egypt, and they so went in the first year 50,000, and in the second year 100,000, and for many years after an equal number. So here we see where these people migrated from, being Canaan, Syria, Ebla, Mesopotamia, Persia, that whole region, which were tributary cities to the king of Persia, or Mesopotamia. So this migration was an extension of the Akkadian Empire. Just as the king had 12 tributary cities along the Mediterranean paying tribute to the central city, which was located in Persia, or Sumer, now was Egypt part of this tributary city after this migration. And then it states the location of Egypt was fertile, with no inhabitants at that time, showing that the Kemites inhabited mainly South and Central Africa. Now verse 6, These things occurred in the 700th year of the reign of Darius in Horeb. And in the space of 200 years more, behold, the land of Egypt was peopled over with millions of people, for the drought and famines in countries around about drove them hither. So here it gives us a time period when these things took place. Darius began ruling in the heavens in 3753 BC. 700 years after that would be 3053 BC, the same time Menes is responsible for uniting Upper and Lower Egypt. And 200 years after that would be 2853 BC, the time of the Old Kingdom. So these foreign rulers occupied northern Africa in pre-dynastic times. Verse 7, Luthag sent his son to govern the land of Egypt, and he made it tributary to the kingdom of Surats. The son's name was HYCSOS, and when he was old and died, he left the governorship of Egypt to his son, Bakal, who broke the alliance with Persia and established all of Egypt as an independent kingdom. Bakal's son, Goth, succeeded him, and Goth enriched his kingdom with great cities and temples and places of learning, and founded games and tournaments. Goth's daughter, Rebekah, succeeded him and was the first queen of Egypt. Rebekah still further enriched the great land with cities and places of learning. Thus stood the country at the time Darius was overthrown in his heavenly kingdom. In this time period, like I said, was around 2853 BC. And now for 70 years, the gods Osiris, Baal, Ashtaroth, and Egypt had not much power with mortals. So here it shows how Egypt was ruled by foreign rulers from Persia, or the Mesopotamia, or the Sumerian or Akkadian Empire, as it states that Bakal, which was the son of the king from Persia, broke the alliance with Persia, and Egypt became an independent nation. According to archaeological records, the Egyptologist states Menes was responsible for uniting Upper and Lower Egypt and making it one nation. But there's no hardcore evidence to prove this, just speculation and theory based off the glyphs and pictorial plates. Now, according to the Sanskrit text of Mahabharata epic, the Indus Valley Seals, and the ancient Sumerian texts, we can get some answers about this Menes, who united Upper and Lower Egypt. The Menes of Egypt is the same as MANIS-TUSU, the warrior, in the Sumerian records. And in the Indus Valley text, he is called MANJA, the shooter, the royal eye of Gupta, and of the four ends of the earth. And the term Gupta is translated as Egypt. Now, after establishing Egypt as an independent nation from Sumer, both the Sumerian text and the Indus Valley script say the same thing about Menes compared to Egyptologists who speculate on this matter concerning Menes. And Menes' father, according to the text, was King Ging UKUS, which was Sargon the Great, who carried the title King of the Four Quarters of the World. Now, according to these texts, which all relate to the same person, Menes was from the Sumerian Empire under his father Sargon, whose name is Gen UKUS, according to the Sumerian text. So this is just a briefing on the Sumerian Empire extending into Lower Egypt or Northern Egypt, according to historical records, along with what the Owaspia is saying concerning this matter. Even on the Gabel el Arak knife, which was found at Abydos, showing an Akkadian man at Abydos, showing that Mesopotamians was in these regions. It was a lot of intermingling of cultures at this time. And I can give more detailed information to prove this if anybody is skeptic on this topic. Verse 8, and during this short period, the shepherd kings migrated into Egypt in vast numbers, and in sympathy with these and of kindred faith were the followers of Abraham, the faithists, who also migrated rapidly into Egypt. The faithists referring to the Israelites. So here it shows the second wave of migration coming into Egypt being the shepherd kings and the followers of Abraham. This would be the time that the Hebrews came into Egypt during this time period, which is the time of the Old Kingdom. Verse 9. Meantime, the kingdom had passed from Rebekah to her oldest son, Hawan, and to his oldest son, Naaman, and to his oldest son, Sev, and to his daughter, Arma, and to her oldest son, Hatha, and to his oldest son, Rotsag. Verse 10. And here stood the matter when Osiris resolved to revise the records of mortals and angels as regardeth the history of creation by God, which he did according to his own decree, which were as herein before stated. So here it shows how Osiris is revising the story of creation, which he did for Darius during the reign of Darius. Verse 11. So it came to pass that through the oracles King Rotsag bestowed upon the libraries of Egypt the history of creation of heaven and earth, with the origin of sin and the creation of man, the first of whom was hence after called Adam, instead of Asu, adopting the Persian word instead of the Vedic. Verse 12, and these records were the same from which Ezra 3,000 years afterward made selections and erroneously attributed them to be the doctrine of the Faithists who were called Israelites. And the records of the Faithists or Israelites were not kept nor permitted in the state records, but kept amongst the Israelites or Faithists themselves, for they were outlawed then, even as they are to this day, because they would not adopt the saviors and gods of the state. So here it shows that Ezra copied these records when he compiled the Torah at that time, which in return is the same as the Genesis stories we have today, which stems out of Egypt and ancient Babylon. And it also states how the Israelites were not allowed to keep records in the states of affairs, but was kept amongst themselves, being that they were outlawed. Now this is no different than when we came through the transatlantic slave trade and we were outlawed from society, not having the rights to vote and do other things. So even in the OASP, it's showing you a comparison of the children of Israel and our captivity today. Verse 13, Rotsag's son, Hiram, succeeded him, and Thutmose, his son, succeeded Hiram. Thutmose was a seer and a prophet, and could see the gods and talk with them understandingly. Thutmose was succeeded by his daughter Hannah, and she was succeeded by HYCSOS, who was a builder on the temple of Osiris, commonly called the Great Pyramid. Verse 14, and in honor of the prophet Darius, the first mortal servant of Osiris, whose name was Thot, HYCSOS named himself Thutmose, which is to say, God thought. For Osiris told HYCSOS, thou art the very thought reincarnated, and behold, thou shalt be God of the earth. So here Osiris convinced HYCSOS that he is thought reincarnated. So HYCSOS took upon himself the name Thutmose. And Thought, earlier as I read in earlier documentaries, was the one who Osiris delivered the first story of creation when he was under the reign of Darius. And now, a couple hundred years later, Osiris is influencing a pharaoh into believing that he is thought reincarnated. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings and catch you on the next documentary called The Story of Thutmose, the Pyramid Builder. Shalom.